love you, Devi.
നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ ഇമ്മോർട്ടൽസ് ആയ എപ്പോഴും അങ്ങനെ ആയിരിക്കുമോ? I don't feel like myself.
Bienvenue au festival de Neuchâtel. Aujourd'hui, on a la chance d'être avec Santhy et Shalini. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Great, thanks.
So today we are going to talk about Ennennum. So you're the director and you're the main actress. So I had the occasion to watch the movie like 2 days ago. I really enjoyed it. And I would like to know what pushed you to go towards this specific subject. It's a relationship story and also like sci-fi in a sense.
So when I first heard about this project that was looking to download the human consciousness onto a chip, and kind of like so the projected year was 2045. So one would imagine by then there would be enough technological advancement to sort of reprint body parts. So we were looking at potential immortality. So when I began thinking about immortality, the first question that comes to mind is who would you spend eternity with? So that's how the whole thing started. So it was more a question of who would you want to spend eternity with? What would it take to spend eternity with one other person, committed to one other person? Like how much of that person would you accept for all of eternity? So these are the questions. That's how that was the genesis, really.
And how did you get in touch with Shanti the first time?
She was recommended by a friend who'd watched her in a play, and she agreed to come for an audition, and she read the script, and we had a really good discussion. She had some very interesting insights about the script, and her interpretation of the character was very interesting in the audition. So I was just very lucky that we got her to audition.
For me, it was a great opportunity. I was very excited when I read the script. In fact, I read the entire script before the audition happened, so I was a little nervous because I really, really wanted to play Devi. So I'm really glad that it all worked out and I got the part. But then there was a longer journey afterwards as well, because I auditioned for the role in 2019, but we only filmed in 2023 because the pandemic happened in the middle and there were lots of delays and funding issues and all of that. So I mean, Shalini obviously has had a very long journey with it. I think she wrote the script in 2011. But I've also traveled with the script since 2019. So it's exciting to finally be at a point where you're sharing it with the world.
Oh, okay, it's interesting. I also was very surprised by the subject of the movie, because it's talking about science fiction, and this last year we have seen many science fiction discussing topics connected to transhumanism and changing not only our bodies but also our souls. Like a few years ago there were Her, a movie about an AI love story in a sense. And last year here in Neuchâtel there was a movie which name was Restore Point, and it was a question about coming back to life with an health insurance as if we were computers. Okay. But your perspective is a little bit different, because it's not, according to me, not a perspective about fearing death. It's especially about relationship and possession, which is probably the huge mistake in relationship. Can you maybe talk a little bit about this subject, which is also treated in this movie?
So for me, the sci-fi element is secondary. I kind of emotionally mapped the story first, and it's really a metaphor for marriage or a long-term relationship. So when you promise to be with someone, you commit to be with someone forever, you make that commitment in a moment when you and that person are X and Y. But from that moment onwards, unless the two of you move in the same speed in the same direction, the quality of your love keeps changing, right? So I don't think we as human beings have really the ability to it's not just that I don't think, but human beings do not have the ability to compute time, really. So when we promise forever, we are really only promising that moment. So that the English title of the film is Now and Forever. So that's what I was looking at, basically, how does what is love, what is forever love, and what does it mean to when you tell somebody you will love them forever. So these are kind of the themes that I was exploring.
And there is also, maybe Shanti, you can answer this one, but there is also this way to consider your partner. How did you prepare yourself for this specific role?
For me, it was very exciting working with Shalini because she really believes in conducting workshops and preparing the actors before we go to shoot. So back in 2019, we had a 10-day workshop where we kind of were figuring out our parts. But then the script had a lot of modifications made over the course of the pandemic. I mean, there were financial constraints, so Shalini had to scale the script down and put the focus more on the couple and the relationship rather than the larger world outside, which meant that as actors, Anup, who plays Auso, and me, we really had to figure out our dynamics. And so before we went to shoot, we spent about 2 weeks workshopping with Shalini, and we worked on the key scenes so that we kind of figured out what the register was that we were playing with, and also like little things that kind of evolved out of the workshop became part of the script as well. So it was a very collaborative effort, and it was challenging but also rewarding. Because we were working with a very tight budget, we had to finish the entire shoot in 2 weeks. So we didn't really have time to go on set and then figure things out. So we had to really put in the effort before we went on location. And it was very exciting for me as an actor, because I think when you work in commercial cinema in India especially, the only time an actor gets to perform is really between action and cut, because there aren't usually, I mean, it's changing of course, and every director has their own process, but mostly you don't get the luxury of doing workshops with your co-actors. So this was very rewarding for me because I got to be Devi a lot longer than I would have on a traditional set. So I really enjoyed the process.
Okay, interesting. And the movie begins also with a special scene which I found interesting. So Shanti, in the movie, you're with your partner, and he's taking a picture of you. Actually, he's stealing a picture of you. And then, so at this moment, you're the subject of the picture. And then it's switching. The camera is from your perspective. And it's also, from my point of view, like as if it's a confrontation of, I don't know if it's too much or not, but like the female gaze and the male gaze in a sense. Can you just explain us what you think about this interpretation?
I'm really glad you picked up on it, and that's something that we intentionally worked with throughout the film, because it is an interpersonal relationship that we're exploring, and traditionally in cinema mostly it is the male gaze, but this we definitely did like my DOP with the visuals, my sound designer with the sound, and on the edit, plus definitely the actors, all of us work towards balancing this out, balancing out this skewed nature of the visual traditional visual vocabulary of the film. And one interesting addition that was brought to the that scene that you mentioned by Shanti actually was, do you want to speak about that, Shanti?
Yeah, I think this is what I mean by how collaborative the whole experience was, because so traditionally in Indian cinema, whenever there is, I mean, whenever intimacy is portrayed on screen, it's usually the woman who is submissive, and you never usually see a woman on top. So the first image of the film starts with Devi on top, and and then they have a bit of like a tug with each other, which also represents what happens later in the film with the power dynamics shifting and the sort of one-upmanship the two of them are playing, with each other. So I think for me, the other thing that was interesting was that when there were a couple of scenes involving intimacy in the film, and Shalini had actually told us, think about how the first scene involving intimacy between Auso and Devi will be different from a scene that comes out later. So that's what set my brain going actually, and I thought it would be interesting to see Devi on top initially, and then a different sort of quality of their relationship that you see when you meet them as a couple who's been in a marriage for 8 or 9 years. So I think that was exciting, because really, like in the Indian context, you rarely see a woman taking sexual agency on screen. So yeah, I thought that was exciting to add.
So I also wanted to know if you think it's really science fiction. I must explain, like it's something which is not so far from us. I think, like 2 days, we are going to a restaurant, we are checking, you know, if it's a good restaurant or not. If we want to watch a movie, we want to be sure it's a good one, so people are just checking all the time. So, in a sense, for me, technological progress and new habits reflects on our human relationship. Do you think this is something that can still be reversed in our society, or is it something like which will be the common days like in the future?
So when I started writing it in 2011, it was a very different world technologically. Like in the last 13 years, the world has changed so much. A lot of things that seemed like a far stretch when I started writing have come to pass, actually. And some of the scenes in the initial version of the script, or the larger version of the script, some of the scenes that I'd written which seemed very out there, we actually saw those scenes take place during the pandemic. Because I'd written a scene about somebody in a Halloween costume, because in the earlier version of the film, there was no rain for 8 years, so the umbrella company, the factories producing umbrellas had shut down, so people just start using other things instead of umbrellas. And during the pandemic, there were people in Halloween costumes going out to shop. So it was almost like the scene had come to pass, you know. So a lot of the things that were kind of like fantastic at that time have already come to pass in today's world. Also, I have this, like, I often feel like technology just amplifies your own emotions, right? Like if you're crying a lot into your phone dies. So I feel like in some ways there is that human-machine interaction, which also I've sort of used in the through the film. And it is also so many companies, like you just sign up for certain things, and it could be the most innocuous thing. You could be summoning a taxi, but they have the most intimate details of your life. So it's something you're not really signing up for, but something that you're suddenly in too deep, right? So that's the kind of company that we're referring to in the film.
Yeah, it's also the question about data, which is
right,
like, the new petrol these days. And you, Shanti, do you think it's something we might be able to reverse, like in the future?
I think one of the things that excited me most about the script was how Shalini focused not just on the personal equation between the couple, but also on larger social issues and how like technology will have these larger social implications. And you know, like it dealt with issues like free will and individual freedom and surveillance and privacy, and all of these are things that we are contending with day to day now. And I don't know if there's really a going back, but at the same time, I feel like all of these are things which have an eternal flavor to them in terms of, you know, things that people at various points of civilization have thought about and debated about. And in terms of, I think because it's a film that talks about eternity, I think it's also interesting that the issues within a relationship that are addressed have actually been a problem between partners from like time immemorial. Like I think when people watch the film, sometimes they have this reaction that, oh, this is a question that we've seen before in like X film or Y film, but it's so universal and so timeless, and I think that's what makes it relevant now and then. So I think that's the balance, because we are talking about very up-to-date technology, but we're also dealing with themes that have been dealt with in literature and art since time immemorial.
Yeah, that's true. And on the other hand, there is also the question of consent, which is very, very modern and important in the movie. Do you want to give us a few words about this subject?
So basically, I'm dealing with I'm dealing with personal romantic love and also the love that we have for public figures. So in both cases, there is the question, of course, the question of consent is a very important one, which we see play out properly in the romantic element. The romantic element of the film explores this quite excessively. But the second part of the film, which has to do with the public figure's refusal to become immortal and the party's insistence that he be made immortal. With this, we touch upon how public figures often don't have any say in the narrative that's spun around their lives. So it's almost like he has no right to die So
Yes.
that's kind of one aspect of consent that I've tried to explore, besides the obvious one that we kind of dwell on for the majority of the film.
Okay. So thank you for this exchange. I don't want to tell too much about the movie, otherwise I will probably spoil it. But I just hope like it will be released in France to let our audience like enjoy it.
I hope so too.
Thank you
Thank you so much.
and bye.
Bye.
Bye.